guaranteed. Viewer discretion is advised.
And welcome back to part 2 of The Freeway Killer with Cars and the Carb. Myself, Allie.
And myself, Helen. And Reg. And Molly. Everyone's here.
Yeah.
And Goobs, obviously.
Obviously. Can't see moles, though.
No, she's just mooching about.
How are you?
Good. It's been funny because, you know, when we do these cases, like, they really stay on my mind.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been sort of wanting to know what happens next, even though I know what happens next is horrible. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, it's kind of almost try and get, hopefully, some closure. I don't know, question mark. But, yeah. I've decided I'm going to start a cult. Like, I'm legit going to start a cult.
Well, that's 2 cults we've had so far, though.
Yeah, but no, I'm going to, like, register it as a religion. I'm going to charge a membership fee.
Why?
I don't know. I'm pissed off with the world.
Yes.
And
to be fair, we have just had a major rant about things. And I think we've decided that we need to live in a bubble and people are shit.
Exactly.
People equal shit.
Exactly. So I figured if we have a cult, then we can be selective about who are members.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we can sort of be antisocial without being antisocial. And I don't want to do anything nefarious. I don't want any illegal activity.
A nice cult.
A nice cult. People can still talk to their families. That's
you would allow them, would you? That's very, very generous of you.
Right. So they won't be cut off from the real world, as it were. And I just, you know, it'd just be nice to have, like, gatherings, like car-centric, rock and roll-fueled, creative gatherings, and then maybe some meditation, because I really like meditation, and just, like, a positive space, but for people we like. So not many people would be able to join.
Mark will drive about on that.
Yeah. Mark's
his favourite thing to do.
Probably do some mowing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Joe, who's a photographer, he's wanted to start a cult for a while, and I literally messaged him today. I was like, no, I'm deadly serious. I'm not being, like, ironic or sarcastic. We're starting a cult, because he always sends me, like, interesting building listings of old churches and stuff like that.
Oh, I like that.
And so I was like, well, we'll do a tiered membership. And then we'll also do
membership.
Yeah. And we'll do a GoFundMe to get the premises where we can have all the stuff happening.
The thing is, though, you kind of put a bit of a spanner in the works already with that, because you said we don't like many people and it would be very selective. So not everyone is probably going to want to donate for that.
Yeah, but
they can pay, just not join.
They can pay to be members. It doesn't mean they're invited along to the gatherings.
Okay,
but they probably
that's the
will
highest tier.
Yeah, and I feel like the highest tier is like us and Joe and obviously Goobs, and we're the only ones allowed to wear black. And then the tiers will go down in colours of different Adidas tracksuits, obviously.
So eccentric.
Yeah, it's amazing. Adidas endorsement, yeah. I mean, I don't know how happy they'd be about that, but at the end of the day, we're going to make the word cult mean a different thing to what it means at the minute, I think. And
talking about cults earlier, actually, at work. Again, this is why you've got post-work, Allie. I've got food down my hoodie.
I've got food down my trousers. So
hair's bunged up, face isn't done. It is what it is.
You're lucky because you're naturally beautiful. If I didn't have makeup on, literally, I think because I'm now getting a bit older, everybody would turn to stone.
But I've also noticed on these cameras I've got like 6 fucking chins.
You don't, though. I feel like it's the cameras, not reality.
Yeah, that's what we're going to go with.
Did you say you were talking about cults?
Yeah, I can't remember. So we've got this doctor at work and she's fucking brilliant. I love her. And she's crazy. She's absolutely brilliant. And then, I don't know, somehow we got onto about... I think we were talking about religion or something like that. And then it got onto, like, Heaven's Gate. Oh, that was it. Something about... I don't know if I can say it because I might get cancelled.
Well, there's a warning before this. So if you're triggered, fuck off. Carry on.
She said something about Jehovah's Witnesses being a cult.
To be fair, I believe all organised religion is a cult one way or another. So.
And then I mentioned Heaven's Gate. She's like, oh, drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a very brief conversation about cults, but it was a conversation about cults nonetheless.
I have found myself like day by day getting more obsessed with cults, and when there's all these documentaries about them on,
Just spilled my coffee. I'm sorry.
it's alright, don't matter. It's just grey. That's what it's for. Spill whatever you want on there. There's a million dog hairs on there as well. You know, you get these documentaries about sort of all the cults, and I watch them for tips. So I'm like, okay, well, this worked for them, that didn't, so we won't do that.
Completely avoid murder.
No murder. Obviously, no mean things to children because children aren't allowed.
Oh, great rule. No kids.
And also, if you don't like dogs, you can't join.
Yeah.
Okay, we might not take murder off the table just yet, according to Goobs. Obviously, he's one of the founding members, so what he says is very important as well. But yeah,
just in case.
Just in case. There's quite a few
Don't want to be
stipulations.
hypocrites.
No, that's it. But I mean, in general,
Yeah.
there's no nefarious stuff.
Goings on. Okay.
So
I mean, I'm down. Oh, can we have t-shirts?
obviously,
Awesome.
I'm going to create a like a coat and hats, like a coat of arms emblem type situation.
I love that.
And then that could be on the t-shirts.
So one of my interesting facts involves a coat of arms, but I'm not divulging that one yet.
Oh, okay, I haven't got an interesting fact today, so I'll have to think of one. But yeah,
I think Goober might be the only one with an interesting fact today because at the moment I'm
random
pretty
fact.
black.
It's not interesting.
Sorry, yes, random fact.
Random.
Yeah.
Oh, to be fair, it could be reg centric. Could talk about how I got reg.
Yeah.
You know.
But we'll save that for the end.
Yes, absolutely.
Ah. So,
Cults.
absolutely. Love it.
Good segue into mentalists.
Well, yeah. I mean, most definitely. Right, so where did I leave off last time? We'd met Bonin. Mm-hmm. We discussed his crimes. That didn't involve murder, but was still just as disgusting, and he's a horrible piece of poo.
Yes.
And we met his acquaintances. We went through his childhood, that sort of thing, you know. Some things that we discussed a couple of things that may have led him to become this way inclined. Mm-hmm. Possibly it was nature, possibly it was nurture. So we're going to probably concentrate now on the murders, and then also sort of his arrest, getting caught, and the court hearing his sentence, all of that lot. Yeah, so
Amazing.
Okay, there is a lot. So with his accomplices, he said that he felt a sense of social belonging with them that he hadn't experienced with anyone else. So he was a bit of a loner, and then sort of he met his people, if you will. His victims were young male hitchhikers or schoolboys, aged between 12 and 19, Caucasian, slender, pale, and long-haired. He drove a Ford, is it Econoline? Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yep.
Well done, Allie.
Well done, Allie.
Econoline van that he...
It's such a cool van.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was olive green. He'd removed the door handles from the passenger side and the rear door so his victims couldn't escape. It has been described that his levels of brutality were similar to that of a drug addict, requiring an ever greater increase of dosage to maintain euphoria.
Gosh.
Dr. Albert Rosenstein, a forensic psychologist, predicted the killer was an intelligent sex offender in his late 20s or early 30s, has spent time in a psychiatric facility, and was abused as a child. He said that while bisexual, the killer has never been comfortable with their homosexuality and is repulsed by his actions, which we also discussed in the previous episode.
Yeah.
You know, he was taking it out on other people.
Completely. Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
With the murders, I mean, this this guy isn't always very clever, but he used to talk about them to his co-workers at Dependable Drive Away. So obviously those not in the know just thought he was really obsessed with what was going on in the case, and he would say to people, this guy's giving good gays like us a bad name.
Oh.
Yeah. So there were, he was hinting. Well, that's a funny noise, Reg.
Reg is sort of snoring.
/ squeaking. Okay, so 1979 in May is the first murder. And it was the murder of 13-year-old Thomas Glenn Lundgren. He used to sell flowers on street corners. So the documentary that I watched, the Lost Tapes, the Freeway Killer, no, the Lost Murder Tape, sorry, the Freeway Killer. There was an interview with his sister, and she said he used to stand on the corners of streets and he'd sell flowers. Proper little sort of skater-looking boy. Very Laws of Dogtown.
Very Laws of Dogtown, yeah.
He was last seen leaving his parents' house on May the 28th in 1979. It got to about 7 o'clock and he hadn't returned home. Later on the 11 o'clock news, it was announced that a body had been found. And his dad just had a feeling. He called the sheriff's department and said, I think that's my son. So Lundgren's partially clothed body was found off Mulholland Highway. His clothes and severed genitals were discovered in a nearby field. The post-mortem showed that he has suffered emasculation. So obviously removal of the genitals, extensive bludgeoning as well. In addition, he'd been slashed across the throat, stabbed and strangled to death. And Butts, Vernon Butts, the one that looks like absolute troglodyte.
Sorry, that's such a good word.
It's the best word. He assisted Butts in this as well. Skipping forward to August. On the 4th of August, Bonin drove from Silverado Canyon to Westminster to spend time with Butts. Along the way, they encountered 17-year-old Mark Shelton near Beach Boulevard. Bonin offered $400 for sexual services. According to Bonin, he masturbated Shelton before Butts began sexually assaulting him as well. Bonin drove into Cajun Press in San Bernardino County as Shelton had oral sex with him. They parked the vehicle and then they proceeded to rape Mark Shelton. He was violated with foreign objects, including a stick, causing him to enter a state of shock, which I read caused his death, so it proved fatal.
Oh, God.
He was discarded beside a gravel road in Cajun Press and was found a week later.
Oh my God. It's just, I mean, it's horrific enough that one person is doing this, but the fact that there's more than one person doing this is just...
It's quite weird because serial killers normally operate by themselves.
Yeah.
Very rarely will there be an accomplice, and the fact that he had several is completely kind of out of the
It's just
quote-unquote norm.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't get how you find people just like that. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
It seems like a really twisted state of fate almost.
Yeah, yeah.
That all of a sudden, like, you're just surrounded by people who are that, they think that way and they want to act that way and they're that depraved, like, and they find each other, like, how?
Yeah, I mean, the mind boggles, and obviously when, we're of sound mind. In comparison, we are, so that, there's no way to get our heads around it, is there?
No.
Because it is...
Like, how you can do that to one person, but then as well that there's several of you that are that fucking insane.
Yeah. It's horrific.
Now, the following evening, so on the 5th of August, between 6 and 10 p.m, 17-year-old West German student Marcus Grabs was hitchhiking from the Pacific Coast Highway. According to Bonin, he engaged in consensual relations with Marcus, who agreed to be bound with lengths of cord and ignition wire. Bonin then retrieved a knife and threatened Grabs as Butts drove towards Bonin's home. It was there that Grabs was again raped and beaten, and Grabs reportedly broke loose and punched Bonin. Bonin then strangled him and stabbed him 77 times.
Oh my God, that's insane.
His body was discarded in Malibu Canyon the following day and was found with a yellow nylon rope around his neck, and an electrical cord was wrapped around one ankle. William told a friend that he had killed Marcus Grabs out of self-defence.
Yeah, okay.
Now, William had squeezed Marcus Grabs' testicles so hard, he managed to break free from his bondage. So Bonin grabbed his ear and banged his head against a rock as well. He is quoted as saying, "I tied him up with nylon. It's electrician type of wire. I pulled a knife on him and he got scared. I stabbed him in the left arm. It surprised me that I did it. I stabbed him again and then again and again and again until he was helpless. They would try to stop me from stabbing them, and I would stab just to stab. I stuck them with the knife in different places because I didn't know where to stab, I didn't know where the vital organs were or anything like that." So that is part of Bonin's taped confession from 1980 concerning Marcus Grabs and other victims that were stabbed as well.
Just sounds like frenzied.
Yeah.
Oh, God. It's so scary.
Now, because Grabs and Lundgren were found in the same area, they they thought there was a connection between the two. Obviously, they were right. Now, on August the 9th, Bonin was detained for molesting a 17-year-old boy from Dana Point. He was violating the conditions of his parole, and he should have been returned to prison at Orange County Jail. However, you're going to get a bit angry. An administrative error committed prior to Bonin's scheduled court date resulted in his release. On August the 13th, another acquaintance, Fraser, who he used to attend the parties with, he drove to collect Bonin from jail. He later recollected that as he drove Bonin home, Bonin said that no one's going to testify again. This is never going to happen to me again. And at the time, I don't know how much I believe this, but Fraser had interpreted this as a statement of remorse.
Yeah.
I say no.
No.
It
is very frustrating because, in part one, he was detained, so that there were so many chances to stop this. I don't know what to say. It's just absolutely ridiculous and unforgivable and
heinous.
It's just, but it's just it's bad enough. The whole thing's bad enough, but the fact that it could have been stopped so many times, not just once, but so many times, is just infuriating.
Oh, I know. And an administrative error.
It's,
really?
For goodness sake.
Now, just a week later, on August the 20th, Bonin picked up 18-year-old Robert Virostek, I think it's Virostek, in Newport Beach whilst he was on his way to work at a grocery store. Now, allegedly, Bonin offered him $50 to perform oral sex on him. And at knife point, Bonin bound and raped him and then drove to Butts' residence. On the drive, Butts also performed oral sex on Virostek before striking him and taking Bonin's place as the driver. Bonin then proceeded to torture Virostek by bending his fingers, then sexually assaulting and bludgeoning him before strangling him. Virostek's body was found on September the 27th alongside Interstate 10. Yeah, so you got all the photos. We'll obviously post photos of the victims.
I've been to all these places as well, like Malibu. I've been to Dana Point, obviously Huntington Beach. So all around that area, it's just
crazy to think like you could be walking those paths where all that fucking shit happened.
Yeah.
You ever been to Vegas, Helen?
Well, let me tell you.
On August the 27th, Bonin and Butts abducted 15-year-old Hollywood boy Donald Ray. Now, it's spelt Hayden, but on the documentary. I think they pronounced it Hayden, so that's what I'll go with. On Santa Monica Boulevard near the Gay Community Services Centre in LA. Bonin offered him $50 for consensual sex. Hayden became frantic, causing Bonin to beat, bind, torture and sodomise him. That was obviously after he got into the vehicle.
Right.
And he was strangled to death. Butts performed oral sex on his corpse.
Ew!
Before the pair dumped his body in a bin near the Ventura Freeway.
Oh, for crying out loud.
It's just a complete lack of empathy for the human race.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to have to watch, like, a Disney film tonight to get this out of my head, I think.
Which one?
Cruella?
No? Oh, you're going live action, not
Yeah, probably Cruella.
animated. Okay. I'm probably I've been watching Britain's Deadliest Kids, so that's probably what I'll do to relax.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sounds counterintuitive, really. With an ice cream, you know,
Yeah, obviously.
because that makes everything better.
I am going to... Well, you can take some of my flapjack home.
Thank you.
It might not be that nice. Well, it is. Like, I've eaten a lot of it already. So it's not that bad. But it's just not... I don't know. It's not perfect flapjack yet. I've got to experiment.
I'm excited that you're getting into baking.
Well, no, that's the extent of it.
To be fair, you're probably getting so sick of sending me like baking videos, trying to coax me into baking.
Yeah.
That you're just going to end up doing it yourself.
No, the stuff... Sorry, I know we're going on a tangent. But the vegan baking I send you, there's no way I would be able to even consider it because it's very scientific. And
What makes you think I could do it then?
Because you bake really well, Nana. The amount of amazing baking you've done. And it's like, she did it for a while and then cut us off.
Well, yeah, I was unemployed for a wee bit. I had time.
Yeah, I suppose you don't have time.
I think I owe Aaron about 3 birthday cakes.
Well, listen, I'm just going to keep sending you vegan baking things until something happens. And also, I'm still waiting for my vegan macaroni cheese.
I really need to do that. Oh, we've only known him for 3 years. Well, I owe him a lot of cake. And I owe your mother a lot of cake, actually. And I owe you a lot of cake. And you a lot of cake.
Yeah.
Cake for everyone.
Cake for everybody.
Yeah. Shall we get back to the horrific reason we're here?
Yeah.
So, after his body was dumped in the bin, it was discovered a few hours later. Hayden's rectal damage led to a coroner's theory that he had been impaled by a large object. Like, these kids were fucking brutalised.
It's just awful.
It really is difficult to just even think that these kinds of things actually happen to these poor boys. And that's what they are, they're boys.
Yeah.
And they must have been fucking terrified.
Oh, God, it's awful. It really is. I just don't... There aren't words for it, are there? It's just... he's just, demon. He looks like a fucking demon.
Yeah, he's got those eyes that just bore, like there's nothing behind them.
No.
But they kind of like penetrate you,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. There's nothing behind them. But
Demon eyes.
And they follow you wherever you go in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, he can get fucked.
Well, you're probably going to be quite angry at the end when I tell you.
Oh, God.
So Hayden's throat had also been slashed and an attempt had been made to castrate him as well. September the 9th, 17-year-old David Louis Murillo was cycling to a movie theatre in La Mirada. Murillo entered the van. Bonin offered him money for sex, which he did refuse. So Bonin attempted to fondle. Words.
Sounds like fondue.
It's not. That would
Fondle.
be good. Fondle, bad.
Bad.
So he attempted to fondle Murillo before binding him. Bonin sexually assaulted and raped him, then traded places with Butts, who was driving, who performed oral sex and beat Murillo. They parked the video and raped him more, and then he was extensively bludgeoned, then strangled. His body was discovered alongside Highway 101 on the 12th of September. Now, it's not known that Bonin killed again until on or around November the 1st. This is when him and Vernon Butts again abducted and murdered an unidentified young man with brown hair whom Bonin claimed to be 5'6" tall and 18 years old. He allegedly said the man had to die because your folks paid us to find you and kill you.
The hell did that come from?
I don't know. He just trying to instill fucking fear, probably. Not that any more fear is needed.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's just a horrible wank stain.
Absolute vile monster.
So the Bonin and Butts beat him, and Bonin strangled him to death before inserting an ice pick into his head.
For fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have nightmares.
Yeah, it's...
Thanks for this case.
You're welcome. To be fair, though, I hadn't done anything for a long time, so I thought, like, it was all on you, and now I've got some time. Bless you. Not that you've got fucking time. I'm making up for it. I'm going straight in there with the gnarly stuff. Yeah, there's nothing light-hearted about any of this.
Well, this is why we have our spooky chats in between now.
It's needed, I think.
It really is.
It's needed. Yeah, I am sorry, but also we started this. It's kind of our fault. We brought it upon ourselves.
We really did.
So the unidentified boy was discarded alongside State Route 99 south of Bakersfield. On November the 30th, Bonin acted alone and he abducted 17-year-old Frank Dennis Fox from Bellflower. He was sodomized and strangled until he died. His body was found 2 days later near the Ortega Highway and I-5 freeway. His body bore signs of binding and blunt force trauma. No clothing or other identifying evidence was discovered at the scene. Just 10 days later, 15-year-old John Frederick Kilpatrick from Long Beach left his home and was offered money for sexual services by Bonin. After supposedly engaging in mutual oral sex, Kilpatrick was bound and raped by Bonin before being transported to his parents' house. Bonin's parents' house, that is, where he was flagellated with string and then strangled to death with it. Mark's looking at me like, what does flagellated mean? Whipped.
Yeah, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, whipped. Yeah, and so with that same string, he was strangled to death with it. His body was discarded near Rialto. It was found on December the 13th, but Kilpatrick remained unidentified until August the 5th, 1980.
Oh my gosh.
He'd had a troubled background, so he would often disappear at times, like sort of run away, that kind of thing. So his mother was hesitant to report the disappearance, but still that is in December? Yeah. December, and, to wait until August.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's 8 months.
Yeah.
That is a bit long, isn't it? And especially because, he would disappear, maybe days at a time. I don't think it was ever that long, maybe. I never read anywhere that said he would disappear for that long.
Yeah.
But friends also mistakenly reported seeing him at the mall.
Right, okay.
So, yeah. No, sorry, I've got that wrong. He was reported missing in February, but he was unidentified until August.
Right, okay.
That was it. No, sorry, I got that wrong. Okay, so that's 1979. 1980.
Oh, God.
On January the 1st in 1980, Michael Francis McDonald, who was 16 years old and from Ontario, was abducted near the Chino airport. Under the guise of providing drugs for him to sell, Bonin parked behind an apartment building where he bound, beat and raped Michael. His body was found alongside Highway 71 in the outskirts of Chino, and he wasn't identified until March the 24th. February 3rd in the evening, Bonin with Gregory Miley this time were driving to Hollywood with the intention of committing murder. The poor lad that they found was Charles Miranda, who was 15 years old, and he was near the Starwood nightclub along Santa Monica Boulevard. According to Miley, Bonin and Miranda had consensual sex in the van as Miley drove. Bonin then told Miley that Miranda was going to die. Miley supposedly asked why, could they not just let him go? And Bonin replied, because he'll know us and know the van. So Bonin beat, bound and gagged Miranda. Miranda began begging for his life. Bonin sexually assaulted him, and then Miley unsuccessfully attempted to rape him because he was unable to sustain an erection.
There's no words. I don't know what to say. It's just so awful. I feel so sorry for them.
It's so weird that people can be this fucking evil.
Yeah. And like we said before, one person being this evil is one thing, but there's 3 people. It's 3, right, altogether? 3?
Main, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It just makes me want to stay home and never go out again.
Right? And the thing is, this is the time when, they were obviously told not to, hitchhike and things like that, but it was what was done.
That's the thing. It wasn't, the amount of cases where, we think now, but they were hitchhiking. But back then it was not a bad thing.
No.
It was a common way of getting around.
Oh, absolutely. It was just like getting on a fucking bus.
Yeah.
But yeah, now, there is no way in hell, 1, would I hitchhike?
No.
I'd have to be pretty fucking desperate.
Yeah.
And 2, there is no way I would pick up a hitchhiker.
No. And that's the thing, and I think in America it was very common just because everything is so far apart.
Yeah.
And, the likelihood of being able to walk from one place to another is a lot smaller than in this country. Mm-hmm. So it was a common occurrence.
Yeah.
So.
And, youngsters doing it as well. It wasn't just adults, it was kids.
Yeah, that's it.
Just the world now just would not deal with that at all.
No.
So, in frustration, Bonin and Miley started to physically assault Miranda. Miley raped him with a blunt object and Bonin strangled him to death with his t-shirt, using a tire iron to twist it like a tourniquet.
He's done that before, hasn't he?
Yeah, so you kind of put it through the sleeves and twist it like that.
Yeah.
So it just keep getting tighter and tighter. His body was later dumped in a Los Angeles alleyway. Oh, Helen.
It's all right, mate.
I'm doing a you.
I know. Yeah.
It's been a day.
It's been
The rant before probably didn't help.
It's the case. What a year this week has been.
The day.
And it's Wednesday.
Yeah. What a week. It's only Tuesday. It's not, it's Wednesday, but yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, yes, body was dumped in a Los Angeles alleyway. Oh, again, alleyway. Mm-hmm. Bonin liked to show off when he raped and murdered his victims. So he would often say to his friends, his accomplices, "Oh, can you do it?" And he said, whilst he was choking Charles Miranda, he said to Miley, "Let me show you how to do this." "Oh, can you do it?" And all of this lot. So he's goading them as well.
Wankers.
Yeah. 5 minutes after discarding the body, Bonin suggested to Miley to do another one, quote unquote. Miley initially protested, supposedly, and stated he wanted to go home, but eventually complied. Did you?
Yeah.
Did you really want to go home that bad?
I call bullshit.
So a few hours later in Huntington Beach, the pair encountered 12-year-old James McCabe. This is so sad.
Oh, don't. They've all been awful.
McCabe had been dropped off at a corner bus stop by his older brother, who had given him money to take the bus to Disneyland.
Oh, no. That makes it worse.
That's just innocence right there, isn't it?
Oh, God. It's all right, babe.
12-year-old off to Disneyland.
No. I'm going back to bed. No.
So, according to Miley, McCabe got in the van and Bonin drove to a grocery store where he parked the van and began hugging and kissing McCabe before binding him and telling him he was being kidnapped for a ransom.
I don't believe for 1 minute any of these people got in the vans willingly. I just don't think so.
The older ones, maybe. Like, the younger ones, I mean, they were obviously they were either enticed or forced or, you know, it could have been anything.
Yeah.
Some could have been willing, some maybe not. I just don't really know. Apparently, Bonin began punching McCabe, and as Miley drove around, Bonin raped and bludgeoned him with a tire iron, and then forced him to sleep in his arms.
The fuck?
I don't quite understand that bit, but I mean, I don't understand any of it.
No.
In any way, shape, or form. You're right.
Yeah, I just need to like wash my brain out with soap and bleach.
Mm-hmm. So when McCabe woke up, Miley and Bonin beat him into unconsciousness and then crushed his neck with a jack iron. So they laid it, and then I think one of them jumped on it.
Oh my God.
He was then strangled to death, and Bonin and Miley discarded the corpse next to a dumpster at a construction site in Walnut City. McCabe's body was discovered 3 days later, and they had robbed him of $6.
Wankers, that's like fucking add insult to the whole thing.
Fucking $6.
I mean...
The next day, Bonin was arrested for violating the conditions of his parole, and he was remanded in custody at the Orange County Jail until March the 4th. However...
Oh, no.
He obviously got out. I don't know why I've not written anything there. Not quite sure. But yes, March the 14th, Bonin abducted 18-year-old Ronald Gatlin. He was beaten and sodomized and was hacked at with an ice pick.
Why do they keep letting this fucker out of prison, jail, whatever?
I don't know. There is something serious. Well, there was something seriously wrong with the system.
I mean, maybe, like, you can maybe understand him getting away once, but, like, all these times, it's just, it makes me angry.
Honestly, like, this is I didn't experience any of this, and thank fuck I didn't. But it is really takes its toll on you emotionally reading all of this, because you just... You can't imagine what these kids are going through, what they're thinking, what they're feeling.
Their families, the people who found them, like, it just, the effects, it just go on and on and on, don't they?
Yeah. And it's the level of violence is just horrific.
Yeah, absolutely unforgivable.
The following day, his bound body was found behind an industrial building in Duarte?
Maybe.
Duarte? Duarte?
What? Sounds right.
Can we take that? Mark will look it up. On the 21st of March, Bonin offered a ride to 14-year-old hitchhiker Glenn Norman Barker. He was beaten and raped with objects, strangled with a ligature, burned with a cigarette, and had his rectum distended. I'm sorry, that you made a lovely carbonara, but seems to be repeating on me.
I apologise. I don't know what that would be.
It was lovely though. You make Duarte. Duarte?
Okay.
Oh,
I've never heard of that before.
no. You do make the best carbonara I've ever
Well, a
had, by the way.
vegan.
Yeah, I'm literally just having to have like breaks and talking about mindless shit
That's fine.
in between.
My vegan carbonara is a welcome.
Break?
Yeah.
Isn't that a service station? Anyway.
Good Lord.
It's just, I don't want to read anymore. It's I kind of hate myself for doing this case.
I mean, that's how I felt about Ted Bundy, and I feel like not that you could compare, but like this is worse. But they're all horrendous, but like I feel like this is worse.
Later the same day, 15-year-old Russell Dwayne Rue was abducted in Garden Grove whilst waiting for a bus to take him to work. He was bound, beaten and strangled to death. It was estimated that he was held captive for 8 hours. Both Rue and Barker were discarded in Cleveland National Forest, close to the Ortega Highway, and found on the 23rd of March.
These guys are prolific as well. Like they are.
It's
There's
not
so
stopping.
many victims. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. This is why he's up there with some like the most prolific serial killers, because of the sheer number and
Yeah.
the sheer violence. Another Friday evening in March, Bonin offered 17-year-old William Ray Pugh a ride home as the pair left Fraser's residence. So Pugh and Bonin were at Fraser's residence together. Pugh accepted, and during the ride, Bonham asked him to have sex. According to Pugh, not according to Pugh. Yeah. According to Pugh, he attempted to leave the van once Bonin had slowed down at a stoplight. Bonin grabbed him, dragged him back inside, and admitted he enjoyed abducting, restraining, torturing, and strangling hitchhikers.
God.
Bonin then informed Pugh how to murder without getting caught. I mean, to be fair, he's evaded for so long, it's insane.
And that's the thing as well, you know, a lot of times with these serial killers, they do, either they've been caught and released, or they're just sort of managing to dodge the authorities. So that's just going to fuel their lunacy and the whole kind of, you know, delusions of grandeur they've probably got because they're absolutely off their fucking heads and think they're untouchable. And that, you know, that just fuels it. And
I suppose, like, sort of driving up and down highways and freeways and things like that, they're not pinpointing to one exact spot.
Yeah.
Like, or one town or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, some of them are quite close proximity, but you're still sort of, they're finding bodies in different places.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, by this point, they know, you know, they're looking for a serial killer, so... Bonin said to Pugh that he had chosen to refrain... Oh, no, sorry, he didn't say it to Pugh because that would be very weird. But he had said that he'd chosen to refrain from sexually assaulting and murdering Pugh, not out of sentiment, but because the pair had been seen leaving Fraser's party together. So it would just ding, ding, ding. That's the guy who's doing it. Pugh was driven to what he claimed to be his home, and then when the van left, he pegged it back to his actual house.
Right.
However... he kept associating with Bonin.
What? That makes no sense.
Yep. So it kind of, again, I don't think he was very smart. And I think it's a case of, you know, they were the circles that they were involved with, like, the same circle of people. And they would, I suppose... They knew the same people. They'd be mixing with the same people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it could have been a fear thing as well. Either keep doing it or become a victim.
Yeah.
Because although they were seen leaving the party together then, that doesn't mean to say that later on down the line, Bonin may have decided to...
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that noise I just made. That was supposed to be like a... slashes. I keep doing it. It's just making it worse. I sound like I'm dribbling or something. To be fair, it's a surprise I'm not dribbling. Anyway, enough about my dribbling. March 25th. Yeah, still going. We're still going.
It's just like there's just no time in between, really, is there at all? It's just absolutely relentless.
25th of March, Bonin and Pugh abducted 15-year-old runaway Harry Todd Turner from a Los Angeles street. Turner had escaped a boys' home in Lancaster 4 days prior. Pugh later testified that he and Bonin lured Turner into Bonin's van with an offer of $20 for sex. Turner was bound, sodomized, and Bonin bit into his penis until it tore, and then ordered Pugh to beat him up. After Pugh bludgeoned and beat him, Bonin strangled him to death. His body was discarded behind a Los Angeles business. In April, so 10th of April to be specific, Bonin was discharged from parole.
The fuck?
After violating parole several times.
Oh my God. Come on, get it together, people.
He encountered 16-year-old Stephen John Wood walk. Now, I've read two things. He was either walking to school or coming back from the dentist.
Oh, okay.
I want to say in the documentary they said he was coming back from the dentist.
Okay.
Wood's older brother had introduced him to Bonin, so he willingly entered Bonin's van. Again, I don't know how true that bit is.
Okay.
He was hogtied and discarded in a Long Beach alleyway close to the Pacific Coast Highway. And Bonin waited until dusk until he got rid of him.
Oh my God.
The post-mortem revealed he'd been killed by strangulation. Now, on several of the victims, including Wood, there was some green fibre. So obviously techniques were different back then. So they used like sellotape to pick up fibres and things like that. And on several of the victims, they found green fibre. And they found that the fibre was a carpet made for vans. So that kind of created a scientific connection between the victims as well. On April 29th, 19-year-old Darren Kendrick was abducted from his workplace in Stanton. He was lured into the van on the pretext of selling drugs or, buying drugs from Bonin. Mm-hmm. Bonin then drove to Butts' apartment in Lakewood. There, he asked Kendrick whether he was gay. Kendrick got uncomfortable and attempted to flee, but Bonin and Butts bound him, and Butts sodomized him. Bonin raised the volume of the sound system to cover up Kendrick's screams. Butts then held Kendrick's mouth open while Bonin poured chloral hydrate down his throat, causing him to sustain caustic chemical burns. So chlorohydrate was used as a sedative first and hypnotic in Germany in the 1870s. And the caustic burns obviously corroded sort of the organic tissue through like chemical action.
Oh my God.
Bonin is quoted as saying, "The kids started fading out, just kind of whimpering. I don't like raping some limp piece of meat. It's no fun if they don't let me know how it feels. Guess we gave them too much of the stuff. Next time, I figured I wouldn't use as much. Anyways, I got my rocks off and the kid was getting boring, no fun anymore, so I strangled him."
It's just, when you think it can't get worse, it just continues to do so.
Now, before Bonin strangled him, Kendrick was trying to fight his attackers, but he stopped, sort of complaining of dizziness. Or, starting to feel very dizzy, which he's going to with the chlorohydrate.
Yeah, definitely.
After Butts strangled him, Butts then drove an ice pick into his ear. It's about 3.5 inches in.
Oh my God.
This fatally wounded his cervical spinal cord.
Oh my God.
His body was discarded behind a warehouse close to the Artesia Freeway. In May, Bonin abducted and murdered an acquaintance of his. He later stated that he decided to kill him when he had awoken that morning because he was tired of having him around. This victim was 17-year-old Lawrence Sharp, who was discarded behind a Westminster gas station in a trash bin. His body was found on the 18th, and his post-mortem revealed that he'd been bound, sodomized, beaten and strangled. The 19th of May, Bonin asked Butts to accompany him on a killing. However, Butts reportedly refused. So unassisted, Bonin abducted 14-year-old Southgate boy Sean King in Downey. King was waiting for a bus. He he used to attend a youth church group. I don't know if he'd been there that day, but on the documentary, the leader of that group was driving his car with his wife and spotted Sean and was like, "Oh, is that Sean?" And his wife was like, "Yeah, I think it is." And then literally a few minutes after that,
God.
he was abducted. Bonin had told Sean that the last bus had already been, so Sean got into the van, and then when he realised what was happening, he told Bonin he didn't want to die.
Oh, gosh.
Bonin walked Sean to where his body was eventually left. He tried to strangle him using Sean's own T-shirt, but it didn't work, so he stabbed him in both sides, upper left part of his back, and in the throat 2 to 3 times, and then in the mouth. As he walked away, he could still hear noises coming from Sean, so he went back and stabbed him several more times.
I mean, just all of the, it's just everything's overkill. It seems like every single victim is just overkill.
Yeah.
And it just really does sound like very frenzied.
Yeah, there's pure and utter fucking hatred.
Yeah.
But I think it's at himself.
Yeah.
Again, not a psychiatrist, but...
No, we're just armchair opinionators.
Armchair detectives, but
Yeah.
not.
No.
So by early sort of 1980, all of these murders are receiving huge media attention. And actually, gay rights activists had offered a reward totaling £50,000 for information leading to the conviction of the suspect or suspects.
Oh, bless them.
They had, obviously, by the stage, determined quite a definitive link between a lot of the sort of recent murders, and investigators from different jurisdictions where victims have been abducted or discovered, they started beginning to share information sort of whilst they were hunting for the killer. 6 officers from 3 of the jurisdictions did form a task force dedicated to that apprehension. Now, we're starting to have a breakthrough. So on the 28th of May, he overheard the details of the ongoing murders on a local radio broadcast and confided to a counsellor that he knew the perpetrator's modus operandi, which was described to him by Bonin 2 months prior. The counsellor reported Pugh's suspicions to the police, who relayed a confidential tip to the LAPD homicide sergeant John St. John, who conducted an extensive interview with Pugh the next day. Although Pugh withheld the fact that he had actually accompanied Bonin on one of his murders, the information he provided led him to deduce that Bonin might be the Freeway Killer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That same day, Bonin invited 18-year-old mentally challenged homeless drifter James Michael Monroe, whom he had encountered while cruising for young male prostitutes, to move into his family's home in exchange for sex. Monroe was a runaway from St. Clair in Michigan who had been evicted from his family's home in early 1980. He'd gone to California to meet a friend but became homeless after he was robbed of the money that he'd earned as a male prostitute in Hollywood. Now, we're in June. While at Bonin's home, Monroe, who was bisexual, began a consensual sexual relationship with Bonin and accepted an offer of employment at Dependable Drive-Away. Monroe described his initial impression of Bonin as being a good guy and really normal.
Really not normal.
I mean, who's to say what normal is, but I definitely know that isn't it.
Yeah.
On the 1st of June, Bonin informed Monroe that he wanted them both to abduct, sexually assault and murder a hitchhiker. Imagine that. If I come round to yours, Helen, shall we go kill someone?
I'll be like, no, babe, let's not. You know?
Do you want to talk to someone, Allie? Do you need some help?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A police investigation into Bonin's background revealed his extensive history of convictions for sexually assaulting teenage boys. Oh, I mean, that was obvious from the beginning.
Gee.
Obviously, they weren't looking into him as a suspect, but, you know, people knew about this and did fuck all. St. John assigned a surveillance team to monitor his movements. On the evening of the 2nd of June, they did begin surveillance on Bonin, and an hour prior to that, Bonin and Monroe had discarded the body of Bonin's final victim. Hours earlier, 18-year-old Stephen J. Wells was taken by Bonin and Monroe on El Segundo Boulevard. He was enticed into the van, and according to Bonin and Monroe, learning that he was bisexual, Bonin had consensual sex with Wells.
Yeah, doubtful.
Before persuading him to go to his parents' house. There, they continued to have sex, and later Bonin paid Wells $200 to allow himself to be bound with clothesline. Wells became suspicious of their intentions and frantic. Now, Monroe said that he was watching TV in another room whilst Bonin tied Wells up and sexually assaulted him in his mother's bedroom. Bonin supposedly called him in and said, quote, "At that point, I knew it was real. Bonin went to get a glass of water and I told him, no, don't do this. But Bonin said it's too late. There is nothing you or I can do to stop it." Supposedly, Bonin retreated to the kitchen, telling Monroe that they were both going to kill Wells. They then gagged and beat him. Wells was pleading for his life, but Bonin strangled him to death. Bonin claimed that Monroe helped kill Wells, but Monroe said that he was in another room when the man was strangled.
Where is... So, Bonin's mother's house?
Yeah.
Where the fuck is she? Like, she can't be out all of the time.
No.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah. But she, in the documentary, she believes he's innocent.
Oh, for fuck's sake, love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, he would take people to his and they'd close the door, do their thing, and then they'd go.
Wow. Register.
Can you hear that on the mic? Bonin ordered Monroe to retrieve a cardboard box, which they placed Wells's body inside of and carried it to the van. Monroe recalls Bonin in a near hysterical state as he assaulted Stephen Wells, shouting, "Shut up, you're going to die," whilst he was strangling and raping and then strangling Stephen. Whilst driving to Butts' apartment, Bonin informed Monroe that he, Butts, and others had committed many of the Freeway Killer murders. And Monroe later testified that Butts dissuaded Bonin from discarding the body in the cardboard box in the nearby canyons and recommended discarding him near a gas station. So they drove to a disused gas station in Huntington Beach and discarded Stephen's body there. It was discovered 5 hours later by two brothers who had parked nearby. Bonin and Monroe returned to Bonin's house, and later that night Bonin hinted to Monroe, who supposedly was fearful for his life, that he should stay quiet regarding Wells's murder or else face potential death. I can tell you we're at the end of the murders.
Like, fuck for that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It is a lot. It is so much.
And I've got dog hair in my eye. It's a lot. It doesn't make any sense because I'm just like, where's his mother? You know,
To be honest, though, I don't think she would have done anything or been able to do anything anyway.
No, probably not.
So after 9 days of surveillance, on June the 11th, plainclothes police observed Bonin driving throughout Hollywood, attempting to lure 5 separate boys into his van before succeeding in luring one. The police followed him until he parked at a service station close to the Hollywood freeway and then approached the vehicle. They heard screams and banging coming from inside the van and then forced their way inside, where they discovered Bonin raping 17-year-old Orange County runaway Harold Eugene Tate, whom he had handcuffed and bound. Inside the van, investigators discovered numerous artifacts which proved Bonin's culpability in the freeway murders. They included various restraining devices, knives, tire iron. They obviously noted the removed door handles, the forensic examination of the van, and even Bonin's home revealed traces of blood. Inside the glove box, they also discovered a scrapbook of newspaper clippings related to the murders.
Wow.
I'm not being funny. You don't keep something like that with you. Or you just don't do... If you don't want to get, like, implicate yourself...
Yeah, but he's obviously, you know, he's been let go so many times.
Yeah.
He just probably really did think he was invincible,
Could be like
untouchable.
a trophy thing. Not a trophy thing, because that's usually where you take something of the victim, but he's like, he wants to revisit.
Yeah, definitely. And there's an arrogance there as well, you know?
4 months after Bonin's arrest, his father died of cirrhosis of the liver. And, you know, caused basically by his excessive alcohol addiction.
Yeah.
That was just included, information-wise. Which I suppose would have caused quite a lot of weird feelings for Bonin, I suppose, because obviously he went through the abuse with him and things like that. But over the course of several evenings, Bonin confessed to abducting, raping and killing 21 young men and boys in graphic detail. He showed no remorse for his actions, but did seem embarrassed and regretful over being caught.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. One investigator recalled that there was not a policeman in that room that did not want to kill him. He did state that his primary accomplice in the murders had been Butts, while Miley and Monroe were obviously involved in other murders. Bonin was physically linked to many of the murders by blood and semen stains. Numerous carpet fibres found upon 7 of the victims' bodies were a precise match with the carpeting in Bonin's van. Furthermore, on 3 bodies, investigators found hair samples which were a precise match with Bonin. Medical evidence revealed that 6 of the murders for which he was charged were committed by a unique windlass strangulation method, which was kind of his signature or trademark, which is that twisting of the tire iron through the t-shirt.
Yeah.
So he was formally arraigned for the murder of Grabs on the 25th of July, but by the 29th of July, Bonin had been charged with an additional 15 murders to which he had confessed, and which the prosecution believed they had sufficient evidence to obtain a conviction. In addition to the 16 murder indictments, he was also charged with 11 counts of robbery, 1 count of sodomy, and 1 count of mayhem. Now, I didn't know you could be convicted of mayhem, so I looked into it, and it's crimes that result in serious physical and emotional injury to the victim. He was held without bond, but he was not brought to trial for the murders of Mark Shelton, Robert Virostak, John Kilpatrick, Michael MacDonald, or the John Doe from November 1979. They didn't find sufficient evidence linking him alone to the crimes, and this is despite him confessing to the murders of Kilpatrick and MacDonald.
Fuck's sake.
On August the 8th, all charges were formally submitted, and 3 days later, Earl Hanson, who was an attorney, was appointed as Bonin's legal representative. He remained his attorney until October 1981, when Bonin requested he be replaced by William Charvet and Tracy Stewart. Based on the confession, police obtained a warrant authorising a search of Butts' Lakewood property on the same date as Bonin's initial arraignment. Which was on the 25th of July, and the search uncovered evidence linking Butts to several murders which Bonin had already confessed to. Butts was brought before a municipal court on 29th of July and charged with accompanying Bonin on 6 murders and with 3 counts of robbery. The LA County Sheriff's Department told the press, Bonin and Butts are believed to be responsible for the kidnapping and torture and murder of at least 21 young males between May 1979 and June 1980, 14 of which have been committed in their jurisdiction. Butts did confess to accompanying Bonin upon those murders he was charged with, and to sexually abusing several of the victims. He claimed to have participated in the murders primarily out of fear, claiming it was either go or become the next victim, saying that he only found the courage to confess upon learning that Bonin was in custody.
Right.
Now, however, Butts pretty much loved Bonin, and he felt a lot of pressure to testify against him. He was adamant that he had only a limited role in the victim's torture, but that he was active in torturing one of them. He claimed that upon successfully luring a victim into the van, he would drive a short distance before stopping the vehicle in order to assist Bonin in restraining and torturing their captive. He claimed his participation in the murders was typically limited to restraining the victims, but he admitted to mutilating one victim with a wire coat hanger. He says some of the victims had been subjected to more extensive blunt force trauma than others because Bonin would escalate the beatings if the victim resisted his sexual advances. Supposedly, Butts rejected an offer to plead guilty to all charges filed against him in exchange for a life sentence with a minimum of 25 years before the possibility of parole. He didn't agree to accept any form of plea bargain or to testify against Bonin. He was brought before Orange County Municipal Court Judge Richard Orozco on the 14th of November in 1980, where he was formally charged with participating in 3 further murders committed in the county, and his trial was scheduled for the 27th of July 1981. Monroe was arrested on the 31st of July in Port Huron in Michigan. He was extradited to California and charged with Wells's murder. He pleaded not guilty to all charges against him on the 14th of August. Miley was in Texas. He discussed his role in the Miranda and McCabe murders in a recorded phone conversation with a friend, and therefore substantiated Bonin's earlier confession.
Right, well.
On the 22nd of August, he was arrested and charged by California authorities with the murders of Miranda and McCabe. On the December 18th, he pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of first-degree murder, but at 2 pre-trial hearings in May 1981, he pleaded guilty. First-degree murder charges were brought against a 20-year-old acquaintance of Bonin. His name was Eric Wijnainth. I've got that so wrong. It's spelled Wijnaendts.
The fuck?
Wijnainth?
Interesting name.
Yeah, I
have no idea.
By a guy called Eric.
Eric.
And this was in December of 1980. However, police learned that Pugh had willingly accompanied Bonin in the Harry Todd Turner murder. So the charges were dropped against Eric in January of 1981, with the county prosecutor citing insufficient evidence as the cause.
Oh my God, it's just like, I still can't believe how many people are actually involved in this.
I'm wondering whether this should have been a 3-parter. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm not giving you a chance to discuss or anything.
No,
just there's
it's fine,
so much to get through.
What the hell can I possibly say? I'm just flabbergasted by how many people are involved in this.
Yeah.
It's just...
On the 7th of January, Butts was arraigned on 5 counts of murder and 3 counts of robbery. By this point, he had been listed as an accomplice in the murders of Ludgren, Shelton, Grabs, Hayden, Murillo, Viresteck, Kendrick, Wells, and the Jane Doe from November in 1979. Now, on the documentary, it says, like, he was... I think it was the documentary, like, he didn't want to testify against Bonin or anything like that, and he actually, 4 days after his formal plea, he committed suicide by hanging himself with a towel in his cell. Cower his way out, so he is getting no fucking comeuppance at all. There are no consequences for him.
Well, there will be in hell.
He took the easy way out, so he doesn't have to face up to it, basically.
Yeah.
And also, that kind of person doesn't fare well in prison.
No, I can imagine they wouldn't.
You know, if you're raping kids.
Yeah.
God. The suicide rendered Butts' recorded testimony in 3 of the cases inadmissible as evidence. So the charges against Bonin in relation to Shelton, Viresteck and the John Doe were therefore dropped in early 1981. However, sufficient physical evidence was still present in the case of Darren Kendrick, so Bonin was convicted of that. Both Miley and Monroe agreed to testify against Bonin in court in exchange for being spared the death penalty and the dismissal of additional charges of sodomy and robbery filed against Monroe. With Miley, it was agreed to accept 2 separate pleas of guilty to first-degree murder, and that was in exchange for 2 concurrent life sentences of life sentences. Oh my God.
It's okay.
With a possibility of parole after 25 years if Miley agreed to testify against Bonin at both the upcoming trials. William Pugh also agreed to testify, having pleaded guilty to 1 count of voluntary manslaughter, for which he received 6 years.
What the fuck? Like, what? Goodness sake. It's very frustrating.
It really is. Now, Los Angeles County, October 19th, Bonin was brought to trial in Los Angeles County, charged with the murder of 12 of his victims whose bodies had been found within the constituency. He was tried before Superior Court Judge William Keene, and the trial commenced on the 5th of November. His prosecutor, a man with the surname Norris, but for some reason I've not written down his first name, sought the death penalty for each count of murder for which Bonin was to be tried. He described Bonin's routine and technique with regards to his victims' torture and how he'd reached the climax of the orgy by killing them. He asserted that Bonin murdered as a group sport with accomplices that he had groomed because of their low mentality, which I kind of said earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Miley and Monroe testified against Bonin, describing their murders in graphic detail. Miley testified to his participation in the murders of Miranda and McCabe, describing how the 2 victims were beaten and tortured before being murdered. He said that Bonin had pressed a tire iron against Miranda's neck and Miley jumped down on him, killing him.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the Earl Hansen, who was Bonin's defence, no longer is. It's now Charvet and Stewart. And their strategy was to challenge the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses and to suggest that significant mitigating factors as to the causes of Bonin's behaviour lay in the extensive physical, sexual and emotional abuse he had endured throughout his early life. Yeah, you're going to bring those up, and yes, they may have had an impact, but throughout he could have been stopped, he could have been detained. He still had choices.
Definitely. And the thing is, lots of people have had traumatic childhoods and don't
kill people.
Go on to do things like that.
He told a copper, detain me.
Yeah.
So therefore he is aware, he's got capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm surprised they didn't try and pull an insanity sort of defence out, but perhaps I thought that was pushing their luck a little bit.
Yeah. Dr. David Foster, who was an expert on the development effects of abuse on children, testified that as a result of repeated abandonment as a child, Bonin had not received the nurturing, protection and behavioural feedback necessary for sufficient psychological development. I agree. Mm-hmm. You can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Bonin's abuse had been so consistent and prevalent that he was confused as to the differences between violence and love.
No, I think he knew the difference. I think he went ahead anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that one's a toughie, I think, because if that's all you've known...
Yeah.
That's normal then.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I mean, I'm not defending him in any way, shape, or form.
No.
The prosecution summoned forensic psychiatrist Park Dietz, a noted expert in impulse control disorder and sexual sadism disorder, who testified that Bonin's behaviour was inconsistent with an inability to control his impulses, and that his actions were reflective of planning as opposed to impulsive behaviour.
Yeah.
It was concluded that Bonin was a sexual sadist, and although he suffered from an antisocial personality disorder, neither of those conditions had impaired his ability to control his actions. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, supposedly, an inmate by the name of Lloyd Douglas testified that Bonin bragged to him of his culpability in the Freeway murders whilst they were both in Los Angeles County Jail in 1980. He alleged that salacious details regarding Bonin's torture of victims that were otherwise not supported with valid evidence. In cross-examination, Douglas conceded he had only related these claims to authorities after pleading guilty to charges of voluntary manslaughter and second-degree burglary against him. He testified also to being Lawrence Sharp's cousin, one of the victims.
Oh.
Now, there's a reporter called David Lopez, and this is where the documentary comes into play. So the Lost Murder tapes, they weren't ever supposed to have been released.
Okay.
So they were kept quiet for like 40 years. I can't remember when the documentary was filmed,
Right.
but they hadn't been heard for 40 years.
Okay.
And you got people on there listening to them who were involved with the case, including psychiatrists, that sort of thing as well. So a reporter by the name of David Lopez interviewed Bonin without recording any of the interviews. It was just a way for him to confess without there being proof of sort of the confession of everything, if that makes sense. He could just talk and it wouldn't be reported.
Okay.
So David Lopez waived his previously sought immunity under California's Shield law. So what that means is that anything that hasn't been anything that's been discussed or something like that or hasn't been published is protected. I can't remember quite exactly what it is, but basically, he, it's frowned upon if you've got a source, you protect that source.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's frowned upon by other people within the media. But he waived that and agreed to testify on behalf of the prosecution because all of a sudden he was like, I think he says, I'm a human being first, a reporter second.
Wow, okay, yeah.
Hats off to you, because a lot of the media are cunts.
Yeah.
So he had 7 interviews with Bonin, and they were between December 1980 and April 1981, on which the documentary is based. Lopez testified that Bonin has said he would refuse to talk with any other reporter if Lopez would agree not to broadcast the precise details of the interview. When Lopez had agreed to those conditions, Bonin confessed to him that he was the Freeway Killer and he had killed 21 victims. Bonin confided that although he resented the prospect of being executed, he had opted to commit murder simply because he had enjoyed the sound of kids dying.
Oh my gosh.
Lopez asked Bonin what he would be doing if he hadn't been incarcerated, and Bonin replied that he would still be killing because it got easier with each one we did. Upon cross-examination, Bonin's defence attorney ensured that Lopez conceded that his testimony was based upon what he recalled from the interviews, as opposed to any handwritten notes. He also denied he received any form of payment to testify as well. So, the interviews weren't recorded, so that Bonin would keep talking.
Yep.
It's also stated on there, I think he was asked, how did you know that they were dead? And he said he would scratch the eyeballs with a knife to make sure they were dead.
Oh, God.
On December 28th, the jury began their deliberations, and on January 6th, 1982, they convicted Bonin of 10 of the murders for which he was tried. He was found not guilty of the murders of Lundgren and King, of committing sodomy upon Grabs, and of committing mayhem upon Lundgren, and of robbing one other victim. I'm wondering if they're talking about McCabe with that one with the $6.
That's really weird. Why? I don't understand why they would find him not guilty for those.
The prosecution and defence made alternate pleas for the actual sentence the jury should decide. It was requested that the death penalty... the prosecution requested the death penalty, but defence requested life imprisonment. The jury further found that the special circumstances required within California state law, which is multiple murders and robbery, had been met in the cases for which Bonin was found guilty, and unanimously recommended he receive the death penalty. Wow. He was cleared of King's sodomy and murder because he had led police to the body in 1980 under the agreement that his doing so could not be used against him in court. Therefore, prosecutors discussed King's disappearance at the trial, but not the discovery of his body. He was cleared of the charges of mayhem and murder against Lundgren because, according to Lopez, he had strenuously denied committing this particular killing in the interviews.
That's odd.
I've got a quote from the LA Superior Court Judge William King when he pronounced the death sentence, which was done on March 12, 1982. He had a total disregard for the sanctity of human life and a civilized society. Sadistic, unbelievably cruel, senseless and deliberately premeditated. Guilty beyond any possible or imaginary doubt. The defence argued in February against the imposition of the death verdict returned by the jury, but despite the appeal, Keane formally sentenced Bonin to death for the 10 murders and ordered his death sentence were commuted to one of life imprisonment. The sentence should run consecutively. Bonin was ordered to await his execution via the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison, and he remained unmoved upon learning of the sentence, having earlier informed his attorney he fully expected to receive the death penalty. But prior to his second trial in Orange County, he was temporarily removed from death row and held in solitary confinement, where he remained until the conclusion of the trial. This was due to the fact that he had previously received a severe beating by an incarcerated gang member with whom he had shared a cell. It was whilst he was in solitary confinement, Charvet attempted to secure a change of venue, saying that the pre-trial publicity surrounding the case in Orange County would minimise the chances of securing an untainted jury within the jurisdiction. The motion was refused by Judge Kenneth Lay, who ruled in November that there had only been minimal publicity surrounding Bonin's case in Orange County following his earlier convictions. Don't think there's too much more.
No, that's all right. The thing is, if you're going to report on it, you need to report everything. It's just so crazy. It really is.
Bonin was brought to trial in Orange County on the 21st of March 1983. He was charged with the robbery and murder of 4 further victims whose bodies had been found within the jurisdiction. Bonin's attorney then renewed an earlier filed motion that the trial should be moved outside of Orange County because of pre-trial publicity. The motion was again rejected and ruled that the trial would begin on June the 14th. Prosecuting, Brian Brown contended that all 4 victims killed within the constituency had been abducted while hitchhiking, then ordered to strip before being bound, raped, beaten, tortured and strangled. In each instance, the ligature had left an impression upon the victim's neck. Emphasis was placed upon the fibres found upon each of the Orange County victims and 3 of the LA County victims, and it was a precise match to the carpeting in Bonin's van.
Yep.
Brown stated that the 4 Orange County victims had been killed by the same individual who had killed Miranda and Wells, and his accomplices in the Miranda and Wells murders, Miley and Monroe, would testify as to their participation. Prosecution presented forensic experts who testified on the matching fibres and blood found in the van. The defence tried to refute these contentions, saying that any similarities in the MO didn't prove the client Bonin's guilt, and that evidence presented didn't support the prosecution's contention beyond a reasonable doubt that Bonin had murdered any of the 4 Orange County victims or the 2 LA County victims. Charvet attacked the credibility of Monroe and contended Bonin was simply a scapegoat for 4 unsolved murders. He argued that Brown has spent more time discussing the 2 LA cases that Bonin had been convicted for than actually proving Bonin had committed any of the Orange County murders. During that 6-week trial, Bonin's attorneys called 2 witnesses in his defence. One of them was Monroe, who conceded Bonin had communicated with him prior to his testifying in the second trial, requesting that he lie when testifying. On the 1st of August, both counsels delivered their closing arguments. It took the jury less than 3 hours before they announced they found Bonin guilty of each count of murder and robbery. And after 3 days of deliberating the sentence, on August the 22nd, the jury announced their recommendations that he be sentenced to death on each count. And on August the 26th, Bonin received 4 further death sentences.
Wow.
Following those convictions, Bonin was transferred from the Orange County Jail back to San Quentin to wait execution via the gas chamber. Whilst he was on death row, Bonin undertook painting and writing. He wrote a series of short stories called Doing Time, Stories from the Mind of a Death Row Prisoner. Fuck off.
He shouldn't have been allowed to do that. I'm sorry.
This is my argument. Like, everyone's like, oh, human rights. You lost your human rights when you took the fucking human rights and lives away from your victims.
Those people, yeah, definitely. Fuck that guy.
He corresponded with numerous individuals, including the mothers of some of his victims. He never expressed regret or remorse over the murders, purposefully withholding information from the families and deriving pleasure from from them sort of not knowing anything. Apparently, he once informed the mother of Sean King that her son had been his favourite victim, as he was such a screamer.
Why was he even allowed to have contact with these people?
I'm not being funny. Like, I know this is going to sound really dodgy and really controversial. When I worked in a prison, I'd have to go through mail. If I saw something like that, I'd fucking bin it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, surely someone's monitoring what's going in and out, and that shouldn't be allowed.
I don't know how it works over there. I think mail is obviously, and phone calls are monitored, but I don't know.
I just feel like someone who's committed as many heinous crimes as he had, just none of those things should be allowed.
And he should be hung up by his testicles and stretched ever so slightly through the day until his balls and his penis were fucking ripped off.
How is it okay that he's allowed to just enjoy painting and writing letters to just torture his victims' families even more? Like, that's absolutely ludicrous.
Mm-hmm. Supposedly, Bonin told both his defence attorneys and several people with who he responded that Butts had been the actual ringleader behind the murders and that he'd been the accomplice.
Whatever, mate.
I don't think so. Try again, pal. No cigar. Those claims were refuted by the prosecutor at Bonin's Los Angeles County murder trial. Sterling Norris, that's it, who said before Bonin's execution, he was the leader and he chose weak people he could use. Well, yeah, because they were all...
morons.
Yeah. He was scheduled to be executed by lethal injection in 1992. This was after the execution of Robert Alton Harris, who was the first inmate in California executed since 1967.
Oh.
Whilst Harris was dying, he exhibited evident symptoms of discomfort, including convulsions, and up to 4 minutes throughout his 15 minutes in the gas chamber, he had these convulsions, supposedly.
Fucking good.
The state of California opted to use lethal... Sorry, I've just got really confused then. Robert Alton Harris, he was executed by the gas chamber.
Yeah.
And, the convulsion... So it was then after that the state of California opted to use lethal injection as an alternate execution method because the gas chamber was cruel and unusual.
Oh, fuck off. Fuck off.
Fuck right off.
What a fucking carry-on.
You should be uncomfortable. You should feel fucking pain. You should feel how your victims felt.
Absolutely. Like, they decided to, these people have decided to inflict pain and horror on these innocent people. And you're worried about the way they're going to be killed. Like, fuck right off.
Yeah.
Seriously, just get in the bin.
Basically, he was stoned on Valium, essentially, strapped to a hospital gurney in the refurbished California gas chamber and pumped full of 3 different chemicals. So the first was sodium pentothal, which is basically, I think, truth serum, which rendered him unconscious in about a second. The next dose, which was pancuronium bromide, paralysed his muscles and made it impossible for him to breathe, much like they said much like a cura in a South American Indian blowgun. I don't know what that means. But the final dose was potassium chloride, which instantly stopped his heart. So 3 minutes after the first injection, Bonin was declared dead.
Fucking arsehole.
This cunt tried to file numerous appeals against his convictions and sentencing, citing issues such as jury prejudice, the potential of jury inflammation via listening to numerous victim impact statements.
As part of the fucking evidence.
Yep. And, you know, they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And inadequate defence. He hired new lawyers who submitted the contentions that Charvet had provided inadequate defence at his trials by failing to place sufficient emphasis upon Bonin's bipolar disorder and childhood sexual abuse. The lawyers contended that had Charvet placed further emphasis on these issues, Bonin would have been humanised in the eyes of his juries. Each successive appeal proved unsuccessful, and basically his death penalty conviction was refused to be overturned.
Well, I'm sorry, but he shouldn't be humanised because he's a fucking demon.
Mm-hmm.
And what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
I just.
You aren't human, pal.
No.
No human does that.
No.
So Bonin is quoted as saying, "I think I've accepted the fact that this may come about and I've made my peace with it. And if it happens, it happens. As far as how I'm going to feel at that very moment, I can't answer that question. I don't know. I don't think any of us would know until we're there. Well, probably I went in the service too soon because I was peaking in my bowling career. So I regret that I didn't get to go out and get the instruction and pursue that because I've always had a love for bowling." Apparently he used to bowl.
What? Who gives a fuck?
So he was executed by lethal injection on February the 23rd, 14 years after his first death sentence had been imposed. He was the first person to be executed by lethal injection in the history of California. In his final interview given to a local radio station less than 24 hours before his death, he said that he made peace with the fact he was going to die. Again, adding that his only major regret in life was that he hadn't pursued his passion of bowling long enough to turn professional.
Why were they even giving him the fucking airtime? Don't even interview him. He's a fucking serial killer. That's what he wants.
He expressed his disagreement with the state's decision to execute him, saying he thought the death penalty is wrong. He denied responsibility for his actions, saying that he had no control over his actions, and said that he would not be able to live a normal life outside prison. At 6 p.m. on the 23rd, Bonin was moved from his cell to a death watch cell where he ordered his last meal, which happened to be 2 large pizzas, 3 pints of ice cream, and 3 six-packs of Coca-Cola. His last hours were spent with 5 people he had chosen, including his attorney, his chaplain, and a prospective biographer. His attorney said that he had not detected any remorse in Bonin. At 11:45 p.m, he was escorted from his holding cell into the execution chamber. In his final statement given to the prison warden an hour before his scheduled execution at midnight, he again expressed no remorse for his crimes and said, "I feel the death penalty is not an answer to the problems at hand. I feel it sends the wrong message to the people of this country. Young people act as they see other people acting instead of as people tell them to act. I would advise that when a person has a thought of doing anything serious against the law, that before they did, they should go to a quiet place and think about it seriously." Just letting you let that sink in for a little bit.
Just fuck off. How dare you give anybody advice?
How dare you think the death penalty is wrong? It's a grey area, don't get me wrong. It is a grey area, but if there is definitive proof that you have done something like that.
Which there was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one thing. It was many crimes.
He was pronounced dead at 12:13 a.m. He was 49 years old. None of his relatives chose to witness his execution, but there were several relatives of his victims present. According to several witnesses, Bonin's execution passed without complications, as I described. He was heavily sedated, and Governor Pete Wilson described him as the poster boy for capital punishment. Apparently, Bonin's family refused to claim his remains following the execution. They were cremated and in a private ceremony with none of his family members present, and then his ashes were later scattered over the Pacific Ocean.
No, they should have been put down the fucking toilet. He doesn't deserve to have his ashes scattered anywhere.
No.
Fucking toilet for you, mate. Go on, fucking jog on. Fuck off.
3 weeks after the execution, it was discovered that his mother had exploited an administrative error, again, pertaining to Bonin's social security disability payments, which Bonin had begun receiving for a mental disability in 1972, and which should have terminated upon his 1982 imprisonment, to maintain payments on her Downey home. Wow. It totaled approximately $79,424, and it was only discovered after a funeral director notified the Social Security Administration of Bonin's death. Apparently, she claims that neither she nor her son were aware of the illegal nature of their actions.
Oh, fuck off. She's a cunt as well.
So David McVicker, which was his last surviving victim, he witnessed the execution. Obviously, I think I mentioned in the first episode, he was traumatised for years and years after, haunted by nightmares on a nightly basis. He dropped out of high school, became dependent on drugs and alcohol, described the execution as being symbolic of closure. And in the following years, he actively campaigned to ensure that his accomplices, Miley and Monroe, remain incarcerated. Monroe was sentenced to a term of 15 years to life for the second-degree murder of Wells in 1981. He is incarcerated at Mule Creek State Prison, and he's next available for parole in 2029. Miley was sentenced to a term of 25 years to life for the first-degree murder of Miranda in 1982. He needs to serve a minimum of 16 years and 8 months before he would be considered for parole. Whilst he was incarcerated, Miley was frequently reprimanded for violating prison rules. He was later sentenced to a concurrent term of 25 years to life for the abduction and murder of McCabe. On the 25th of May in 2016, he died of injuries he had sustained 2 days prior when he was attacked by another inmate in an exercise yard at Mule Creek State Prison. At the time, his next scheduled parole hearing was to be held in 2019, but he passed away. I say that like it sounds nice. Sorry. No. He died. Somebody killed him. Got his comeuppance. Pugh was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the voluntary manslaughter of Harry Turner in 1982. He'd initially been charged with the first-degree murder of Turner, in addition to companion charges of robbery and sodomy. But as I mentioned that earlier, after 5 days of deliberation, the jury found Pugh guilty of the reduced charge of manslaughter and innocent of robbery and sodomy. He served less than 4 years of his sentence and was released from prison in 1985.
What?
So that is the fucking horrendous story of William Bonin. And yeah, he was suspected of committing at least 21 murders.
That's just insane. And
a lot,
an awful lot. And then just the fact that he wasn't remorseful, just all the things are just like so vile. I mean, yeah, I'm going to put flapjack in my face and drink tea. I don't know what else to say. Like, that is just so
I need flapjack. That's going to help. My emotional flapjack.
Emotional flapjack.
No, what is it? Emotional support flapjack.
Yeah, emotional support flapjack. I mean, luckily I've had my emotional support dog on my lap the entire time. Fucking hell. What a case. Mm-hmm. That is just unreal. Like, if you saw that on a film, you wouldn't believe. You'd be like, that's absolutely ridiculous. It would never happen. It's just... yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just well done, because that was a really long case.
My mouth is dry.
Yeah.
It's so dry right now. I think I forgot to finish my coffee. I did.
Well, I'll make you another one. But, yeah, it's... God, I mean... It like as someone hearing about this case sort of like for the first time, it just makes me very angry because I just think for the amount of terror he inflicted on people and their families, it's just it wasn't.
I need to go and sit in a dark room and be very quiet.
Yeah, like fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy. You absolute fucking dick cheese.
Fucking cunt rag is what he is.
Yeah. Right, well, I think we should end with random facts. It's been nearly, an hour and 3/4?
Yes. Yeah.
That is our longest episode yet.
It is, actually.
That could have been a 3-parter. Maybe next time I will do that.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
We just need to apologise to everyone for the camera beeps. We've been having a lot of technical difficulties with my speech and the fucking GoPros not going or proing.
So therefore, Mark's random fact is that he has developed a sudden dislike for GoPro.
Yeah, they're a pain in the arse. They keep overheating and then really not doing much. They're just sitting there.
To be fair, like I said, this has been a very long episode, so...
Yeah, but still, GoPros are supposed to be like on the front of cars and bikes. They're sat on a fucking stand, not doing anything.
Do you reckon it's because the lights are on them?
Yeah, but it's not that hot.
I don't know.
Anyway.
The LED. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm smart sometimes.
You're smart all the time. Do you have a random fact?
Yeah. Mum wanted me originally to be called Philippa or Stacey, but probably Philippa. Yeah.
Okay, I knew about Philippa. I didn't know about Stacey.
Yeah. Nana wanted me to be called Hannah.
Oh. No, you're definitely Allie.
Yeah. Although I would have liked Pip or Pippa.
Yeah, I like the name Philippa and I like Pip or Pippa. Yeah, I can kind of see that, but no, you're
But
right.
I don't think I'm
You're not
Allie.
Hannah or a Stacey.
No. But yeah, my random fact, Mum wanted me to be called Philippa.
Huh. Okay. Well, my random fact is Reggie related. So this wonderful Chihuahua on my lap here, I rehomed him, I actually don't know, 4 years ago nearly. And I'm not sure how old he is. He came from a sort of slightly... I don't know how to say it without being politically incorrect. Yeah.
Community.
From a community that did not look after him. He was actually very, very ill-treated. He had lots of things wrong with him and he'd had his teeth knocked out and he had bumps and lumps on him where he'd been hit and stuff. But he's living his best life with me. And
he really is.
He really,
really
is. And he is such a wonderful little soul. His name used to be Bambi. And I
dislike that greatly.
Nope. He's actually going to be called Reggie. And they do say that, if you have an animal that's been mistreated, it is actually an idea to change their name because they might associate their previous name with bad things.
Are you going to disclose Reggie's full name?
He's Reginald Elvis.
And
what?
There's more.
What else is there?
Isn't there like Star something or other?
Oh yeah, I think I've got various. It's Reggie Elvis.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he is a star and an angel. And he is officially my emotional support dog. I have a card.
He is. He's registered and everything.
He is a registered emotional support baby. And he is. Him and Molly. The only reason I didn't register Moles is because I don't think you can have two emotional support animals, but I might be wrong. But and also,
she used to bark more.
And also she doesn't like going places, whereas Reggie loves going places.
Yeah,
so
she hates driving in the car.
I can take him.
She gets poorly, doesn't she?
Anywhere. Who will pee on things, but so that's that. Random fact, little angel baby.
Excellent. So if you have stuck around for that long, well fucking done.
Bloody well done.
You can give us a follow on Instagram at Cars of the Macabre. You can email us any of your own spooky stories involving cars or true crime stories involving cars over at
carsofthemacabre@gmail.com.
Thank you.
And can you make sure that you let us know if we can use your names or not? Because I'm sort of collecting the stories in a folder, but I just need to know whether you want them to be anonymous or whether you would like us to mention your names. And apparently Goober says, yes, you can have more than one emotional support animal. So...
love that.
Yeah, okay.
Goob is my emotional support animal.
Amazing. I love that. Woof woof. Make sure you like, subscribe, download.
Comment if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, I don't read the comments. Allie does. possibly sometimes. And yeah, just hope you enjoyed it. And a massive thank you to Mark at Park Lane Studios.
He's looking so tired.
And the video and just the professionalness.
Promise next time, Mark, it'll be on a weekend when we don't have work the next day.
Yeah, sorry, mate. And next time we've got speaker chat, so it'll be a bit easier.
Oh, yeah. It really will.
Okay. Yeah. Well done, Allie.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening, people. And until next time,
stay spooky, bitches.